Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining today. Myself, Kevin Orris, Scott Little, Zach Gallardo. We're going to be discussing what is masculine feminine polarity and some of the top areas, practices, and experiences that a lot of people have had in and out of dating containers. That's going to be part of our upcoming program, which just launched, Primal Polarity, which is all about this. So I'm going to get Scott and Zach in here. And if you're joining, just type in the comments where you're coming in from. There he is.
What's good, man?
Hey, bro.
How's that fresh morning sun over there?
It's actually pretty cloudy. I'm here in Chicago, and it gets spoiled in Uluwatu with the sunshine. It's a lot of cloudiness. Yeah. Shaka in the house. What's up, brother? Grateful for you. We got Elohim from Iowa. Amazing. And Shaka's out in Austin.
He's got the same tapestry. That's what's up.
It's
It fits the vibe, man.
a good one. I don't know if Scott can join or not. There he is. So yeah, if you're just settling in, grab a tea. It's probably late where you are. Hermano Scott in the house.
What's up, brothers?
What's up, man? It's so cool that you can just do. I wonder how many people can be on an IG Live now.
Infinite amount. What's up, Aaron? Aaron Tompkins in the house, baby.
Let's go.
That's cool.
Ancient Mystech. That's a dope name. That's a dope handle. Anyway, everyone that's joining, put where you are in the comments, or just put a little high five or flame emoji to let us know that you can hear us. And we're just gonna riff, and I'm gonna we'll kick out some topics, and we'll just go around the horn because I feel like I've learned so much over the last 2 weeks, just starting to post exclusively about masculine feminine dynamics and polarity, and how, someone said it best in a message to me. They're like, everybody thinks they're an expert on this topic. Everybody, like every single person, which to me is, on one level, makes sense and is amazing, right? Because everybody, it's very personal, right? Their love life, their relationships, very personal. So they have things that work for them that don't work for them. And on the other level, it's a factor, and this doesn't exclude me or us, of just profound conditioning, that people believe they understand what's going on under the hood when they're dating or they're in a marriage or a long-term relationship, when the facts are most people have no fucking clue, which is why I got into this work, because the images and the things that are fed to us are just completely inadequate to handle the realities of actually being in a masculine feminine dynamic. So the first topic I want to just go straight into, which I made a video about yesterday. It's the queen in the house, Orica. There's Quetzal. What's up, brother? Quetzal's a legend. He knows all about primal polarity.
Let's go.
Yeah, is emasculation, but we can call it energetic castration. And this is essentially when a female partner, a feminine partner, either subtly, very gently, or just overtly, basically undermines the leadership and dignity of the masculine partner. And this can be chronic over years, or this can be in one like big fight or very nasty exchange. And what's fascinating to me about it is that it's so widespread. So many people I know have experienced this, including myself. And why do feminine beings do it? Like, let's just look at it objectively instead of trying to place blame or anything like that. Like, what's actually happening there? So I'm gonna kick it to you first, Zach. Give your take.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes up for me is that this happens due mostly, in my experience, to a lack of safety. When the feminine feels unsafe, their own inner masculine energy starts to come online, and they will start to essentially say, I can take better control than you can. I will lean into what has protected me my whole life, because I'm beginning to notice that you're not capable. And, you know, obviously when that instinct hits, it's like valid, right? So that's like the first thing I think, is that it is valid. And you can't go super quick to dismiss the, experience of that happening. And so, already at the trigger point, do we have to like have a sense of awareness about what's going on? Because that's where like the spiral starts to happen, and it can turn into an entire dynamic. And I have brothers that have been in 5-year relationships where for the past 3 years they've experienced, this almost on a daily basis. So yeah, that's kind of the first point I'll say.
Nice.
Yeah.
Scott?
I mean, there's a lot that factors into it, obviously, but like Zach was alluding to, it's really trust and safety. And then further, so we want to take it, one step deeper and more of an like kind of an overarching, kind of, standpoint is communication. It's tonalities. It's the way that we go back and forth, the way that the feminine trusts the masculine, and the way that the masculine leads the feminine. And if those two components aren't there, realistically, then you've got no foundation. And so there's so many little nuances that I don't think anyone even, and this is what you were just speaking to when we started, was people think they know, but they have no fucking clue because of conditioning, because of society and movies and media and social media and all this fucking garbage that's been spewed at us our entire lives and flipped essentially. Oh, she wears the pants in the relationship, or this or that. All these coined terms that you kind of like as you grew up were like, oh, this is kind of funny, like haha, like blah blah blah. No, but it's really fucking true, and it's a real problem. So
Yeah, this is huge. This piece right here about in language, there's already terms that refer to this phenomenon of like emasculation, or Zach nailed it. It's just the feminine feeling unsafe. Now the issue happens when the feminine doesn't understand that their power is actually in vulnerability, and if they actually want to affect change in their masculine partner, the best way and the fastest way is actually to open, which is the opposite in that experience, because they might have experienced trauma. So then it goes to shame, blame, guilt. And it's like, I'm going to hurt you until you do the thing, right? And this is where the term, she wears the pants, or, let me ask my wife if I can go out because she runs the house, or you're
she's the
pussy
boss.
whip.
Let me ask the boss. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Oh, she's the boss lady. She's my better half. It's so crazy because then men themselves, the masculine, is just emasculating and castrating themselves. And this is part of what the phallic energy is, right? Or the masculine energy, which is penetrative. It has to be in alignment. It has to actually be upright. And this isn't just about erection. This is about stalwart, strong energy, which is that leading energy. And if the feminine can't feel that, well, she's going to create that herself. And what sucks is when there's two phallic energies fighting, it's kind of like who's in charge. And the practice of, well, let me lessen your power so my power can be the one leading, so I can feel safe, right? This is like the equation happening a lot of times in the feminine being. And unfortunately, a lot of men enable this because they don't say no, or they don't set boundaries, or they don't call it out, right? They say like, hey, I noticed that you're doing this. This doesn't feel good. They can lead in that moment. Hey, I noticed you're feeling unsafe, and you're taking like, what you just said was very hurtful. Let's reset. Let's pause. What are your needs? You got to come back to like heart space and vulnerability in that moment and catch it before it turns nasty, right? Because then the man will just shut down. Resentment will fuck you, and then it starts to build, right? Let's talk about this like very specifically and tactically. A lot of people in the group and on comments have been wanting examples of this. So I'd love, Zach, give us an example of that where you've experienced it or maybe a client has.
Help me understand what you're aiming at.
Like what's the lived experience of like emasculation or castration, like in a relationship? Like what's a moment?
Yeah. So one that was recently expressed to me, often it can have to do with like finances in a relationship too, where like one of my friends, his partner makes more than he does, but it's also more than that because he's kind of struggling to find larger flows of income for himself, and she makes like much, much more than him. And so this has created a sort of dynamic where she is the one in control of like a lot of the decision making and where they go and the overall vision of like where the relationship is leading. And he struggles to grab a hold of any sort of like leverage because she like has it all. So finances can be like one example. So I'll just like pause there.
Yeah. And then in terms of, I mean, just again, back to tonalities and verbiage and the way that, you know, communication is had by telling the masculine to do something. I need you to do this. Go do this. Instead of, hey baby, could you help me out with this, please? Can you like the tonalities? It's so much. It's not about, again, like the boomer ways of polarity, of being like
Boomer
this whole,
polarity,
like,
bro.
boomer polarity. We'll coin that. Everyone will start catching on as they join the Facebook group. I mean, and we've seen that even like early on in the, in the space of like communication, right? And I think that is something I will really speak to as, you know, we dive into Primal Polarity, the 8-week program, you know, the Facebook group, everything that we're kind of, you know, laying as a foundation in the importance of how that can literally change the entire dynamic of a relationship, essentially. It's so fucking crucial. And I think that, again, no one has had the tools or resources to understand this at the level of, you know, being able to do it and do it conducively and do it in a way that's in balance and comes from a place of respect, right? Respect goes both ways, but especially for the masculine. And that's what I've seen across a multitude of, you know, my life in relationships, dating, the whole bit. If a woman comes at me sideways and disrespects me, it like literally just floors me. It's very difficult if I get a continual sense of energy from a woman that is disrespectful and cunning and just overly like direct. I'm not interested. And again, what's that come back to? Majority of the time, conditioning, right? Most women, again, this is a non-binary, you know, issue, but, you know, by all means, but most women, right, want to be in their feminine. That's the natural desire, right? So what and how can you go about in operating in that way without, you know, again, you know, whatever, ruffling feathers or shooting yourself in the foot? And I think this is the $1 million question for most people. So yeah. I'll leave it at that.
We have to start with what's like not working and some of the shadows and the negative things, so we can actually clear those. Just like if you want to make a stream beautiful, you don't just pour fresh, clear water. You got to clear the shit, the blockages, so the water can start to flow and clean itself. And, you know, this is going to be what's part of the 8-week container we're leading, Primal Polarity. If y'all want to learn more about that, you know, you can DM any one of us or go to the link in our bios. You're going to find that. We also have a free Facebook group where we're just doing this all the time and starting to build those founding members. So that could be interesting to you.
The Polarity Dojo, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. This is a great place to start, and this topic specifically brings up so much charge. And I see some questions here, which I've seen on other places, which is worth going deeper into this, because like Christina's saying, if me as a woman express how I feel my boundaries, and he still does his way, which is not acceptable to you, let's be specific, what would you suggest? So this is great, because a lot of women were agreeing with the castration or energetic emasculation energy, right? Because that doesn't work. This is the mind fuck of that, just real quick. As the feminine, what you're most attracted to and what you most want, assuming you actually love this masculine partner, is for him to be super masculine and lead you in his presence and his love and his physicality. And when you castrate or emasculate him, even subtly, even subconsciously, you may not even know you're doing it, you're chipping away at the very thing you want most. And then in your brain, you're like, why isn't he doing the thing I want? It's a complete mind fuck, and it's actually self-sabotage. Now, that being said, there is a nuance, right? So you've set your boundary, you've expressed how you feel. What Scott said is important. Your tonality and where you're coming from when you express it is very important. Hey, go do this. Or, hey, baby, can you help me do this? I love when you solve the problem I have. And then the masculine feels amazing. You're actually doing the opposite. You're building him up and letting him know, like, wow, you want his support, you want his leadership. And then he feels that, and he's like, this feels good. So masculine wants to be respected. Now, if he's still not doing it, and it's not acceptable, you set a boundary, it's not working, you need to pause and create distance. And you have to collapse the resentment inside yourself, because in that situation, if you went straight to lashing out or straight to blame, you know, just like all the other men that hurt you or your father, you know, these are some of those deeper patterns. You have to create space. And this is where the feminine, you can collapse so much within your being through emotion. And so are you emotionally intelligent? Are you able to catch that, alchemize it, move it? And then once you are at a place where you feel good, then return to him and tell him how it felt. Don't tell him that he was wrong and he needs to fix. Tell him how it felt. Share the impact in real time. This is one of those nuances that has shifted my entire view on the masculine feminine dynamic, because I never experienced it until I was dating high quality queens, basically, who would actually practice it, because it's great intellectually. So I wonder what that brings up for you, Zach.
Yeah, this is where the context of like pre-setting that your relationship is going to be like practicing in this way is super important, because like you talk a lot about like the circuit, like the masculine circuit and then the feminine circuit, and then how they join together. And like in order for that to be successful, you have to be willing to commit like from the get-go and say like, hey, listen, what is going to happen is that like you're going to respect my decisions, but I'm going to respect your feelings. And to me, at the end of the day, that's like exactly where the pins drop, because like I know that like as long as I'm continuing to listen to what my partner has to say, she's going to continue to feel safe in my leadership. And so for us, like there's a continual circuit there, and I will attune to what her feelings are saying in action, and she attunes her feelings like to my decisions. So like there's this, she's attuning to my decisions, I'm attuning to her feelings, and it creates this like really powerful, beautiful circuit.
Yeah. When the masculine is decisive and can truly lead the feminine out of those chaotic emotions, right? And create that groundedness, create that unity. That's where the magic happens, just to add to what you're saying, right? And I've seen this, you see this time and time again. Women complaining about this all the time, right? Even as simple as like picking where to eat, where to go to eat, making simple decisions. And this is where the masculine, this is where the true, you know, the men out there, right, are dropping the ball. Not saying, hey, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, this is all these different things that you know, that bring the leadership component into, you know, into play. And it's, again, subtleties. This polarity work in general, I mean, we've been practicing this even unconsciously our entire lives, right? But it's all subtleties, all little things. It's like riding a bike, and you know, once you start to get the hang of it, it becomes easier. But in the beginning, it's really fucking difficult. You fall off, and you scrape your knees up. You get banged up a little bit, right? So that's what I've seen so much, especially in my own relationships and you know, dating and everything as it relates to masculine and feminine dynamics. Is it's really the subtleties. They're so key. And that's, you know, essentially what we're going to work to break down, you know, between, you know, the container, you know, and the group, is just being able to field and, you know, understand where people are at, give them the, you know, kind of the tools and resources that are not there, right? That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Just as like a small like language tip here that feels like it adds is like, one of the ways that you can shift is, instead of approaching things and being like, hey baby, would you like to, et cetera, shifting that to like actually taking ownership of something and saying, hey baby, I'd like to, and actually giving her something to respond to. And then that is going to like cultivate, even if she doesn't like it, she's going to let you know. Her feelings will be there, but you're at least taking ownership of like an action.
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Communication is the front line here. So communication, and it's a lot of it is going to be nonverbal, and it's going to be body language and eye contact. So if you're firm as the masculine, and you're upright and you're open, so your chest is open but your spine is straight, your gaze is steady, she's going to feel that immediately. And so as someone was saying here, you know, the feminine needs to feel safe. That's huge. As soon as I feel unsafe around a man, it's a big deal. And hearing the masculine perspective on how we make this work is everything. Yeah, I mean, this is great. The safety is both physical in terms of your structure. So the masculine is literally structuring reality. So if you're physically confident, strong, energetically, just like steady, just body language. Don't even, this is before language. Body language. She's already going to feel more relaxed and soft and like juicy, and there's going to be that responsiveness and the feeling and the emotion. And then, as Zach just said, just owning your language, being decisive. Hey, this is what we're doing. Be ready by 7. Bring this. How many feminine beings just love that? And like, if you resist that, and maybe you don't want to go then, or you don't want to go to his plan, that's okay. But you respond in real time. And even him being decisive, even if it's not your specific desire, creates polarity. And it sets up the next communication. It sets up the next attraction. And it sets up that sense of like, ooh, like there's energy here. And you can just feel it. That's the thing about a lot of this stuff. Like, it's kind of tough to just talk about it, although there's so much to talk about. You have to feel it. And once you feel it in a relationship, even on like a first date, you can just feel it. It's an instinctual thing. It clicks. Because a lot of people will fight, in my experience, will fight some of these ideas. It's like, well, that's outdated, or that's old fashioned, and this is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, sure. There's a reason like when you say it's old fashioned or traditional, that just means it worked for a really long time, which means it's effective. Now, the people doing it and like the oppression and the repression that has happened, which there's no doubt about it, to the feminine largely, but also the masculine has been, sent to die in wars and been, there's a whole, and, packaged as factory workers. There's a lot of stuff on both sides. This is reclaiming it. And it's reclaiming it in the moment in your relationship. So I want to switch topics here so we can get a few more angles, even though we could just talk about this one. Let's talk about why, when you're in a relationship, even if it just started, finances are important. And we can talk about provision, right? And this one is a hot topic, right? Money, sex, power are the hot topics. You already alluded to it, Zach. I'd love for you to like expand on that more. What if your feminine partner is making more than you? What if you haven't created strong income as the masculine, but you still are attracted to the feminine and you want to date? Like, let's go into this a little bit. It's worth going into.
Yeah, this one's tough because like every man is developing himself at some stage somewhere. So whether you're talking about like there are men who have a ton of like financial provision, but are not able to emotionally provide or sexually provide, right? Or like vice versa here and there. Like men who are like, oh, I'd love to take care of you, tend to you, be emotionally supportive, and I can lay it down in the bedroom, but like I got nothing in my bank account. And so like I always find that it's wise to create like seasons in relationships. And my perspective of it is that like even though for a lot of people marriage is that end goal, like union is the end goal, I think it's okay to operate like seasonally. And so if you can guide a season of a relationship, you're doing a pretty good job as the masculine. And so one of the seasons might be like, hey, I desire you, I desire to move towards you, I desire to cultivate more intimacy with you, and this is a season of my life where I'm going to be putting a lot of my energy into financial abundance and creating and building, becoming a better problem solver, a higher quality problem solver, so I can do that. And so even though I desire to give some to you, I'm going to be giving a lot here. And so like you can direct your own like growth in the areas that you're underdeveloped as the masculine and still be polarized in a relationship.
100. Really well said. And just to just to add to it, long term, I think it's all about seasons. It's all about going with what is present and what's going to serve both the masculine and the feminine in that given season. But eventually, the rubber's going to need to meet the pavement, right? And even if someone's, the feminine's making more, the true feminine's making more than the true masculine in that type of a container, it's ultimately going to have to change. In the sense of even if the guy's making less, he's going to have to pick up that weight. The provision through and through for a masculine being and a feminine being to be in balance is the masculine taking care and providing for the feminine, ultimately. So, and that can be really difficult for sure. But even if that means, I know couples that, this is a situation, but the masculine still, sees it through, and makes it happen, by, with food and, housing and, all these different things. Right. So it's definitely not, it's definitely not a one-sided coin, but eventually it's just energy. And to add to it as well, the overarching tone again of these dynamics isn't just like we spoke to, and I think it's really important to make point of. It's not just males, male female, right? And masculine male, feminine female. There are situations where you've got a woman that's just bossing it up, making the money, doing the stuff, and the stay-at-home dad. And if that dynamic works, beautiful. That's what this work's about. It's just about finding balance. And we speak more to the specifics as it relates to, the masculine male and the feminine female. But again, this is you can change this in whatever fashion. And I think it's really important for people to understand. This isn't about good, bad, like all these different things. It's really about, what's alignment for you, period.
Yeah. It's about human thriving. That's all this is about. And like, 100%. This is ultimately about love. This is about love. But that's literally what this is about, which is why it's so triggering, because we're living on a traumatized planet where a lot of people have been hurt and haven't experienced love. And this is a map. This is one map. I mean, you could come up with something different. I think this map has a lot of historical and evolutionary momentum behind it. So it's going to be tough to reinvent this wheel. But hey, if somebody can do it, I'm here. I'm here for it. The provision part, I mean, to illustrate it in a very kind of on the nose way and overgeneralized, but there's real energy in it, is just go to hunter-gatherer. Can you imagine right now, if you're a man, you're in a male body, or you're just a being who's mainly masculine, can you imagine sitting in camp and washing berries while your feminine partner is killing a woolly mammoth and dragging it to you? Can you imagine that and how that would make you feel? Like, it just, there's a reason,
simply put,
that the masculine is an expert at handling stress, at going very deep into hyper-focus, problem-solving, coordination, and physical exertion and violence. Straight up, hunting is violence. So is war. And now, we're not killing woolly mammoths or hunting with wolves in the woods, although some folks are, they're getting back into it. But psychologically and emotionally, the masculine is in that battlefield right now. You go to Wall Street, you go to corporate America, you become an entrepreneur, you are signing up for a hunt, and it's going to be intense. And to be successful, the top 1% of, business success at the very high end of income, if you look at these masculine beings' lives, which some of them are women, but make no mistake, they're operating deep in their masculine. They're female bodied, but they're deep in their masculine. They are in extremely high stress, extremely focused, and extremely structured, extreme structure. Like their time and everything is structured at that high level. And that's what the masculine excels at. If you put a highly feminine being in that situation, they're going to have a bad time. Not to say they couldn't be successful in their feminine, but they're going to have a inordinately difficult time. There's reasons for that. So the provision piece is important. As Zach nailed, you can go Dutch. You can go 50-50, 100%. You can go 80-20, right? Which is kind of where I lean. Like, I don't pay for everything in my relationship, but I pay for the majority. And then we split a lot of other things that we agree on. And yet, that energy of provision is extremely powerful just on the financial piece. Just on the financial piece. As Zach said, you can have provision in physical protection. So maybe you're not paying for everything, but you are fixing up the house or holding down the homestead and providing a safe haven for the feminine and for your family, etc. It can be emotional, it can be sexual, it can be psychological. You can psychologically provision by creating order and structure
I
while
think that's a
not
good,
making
I
it
think that's a
die.
good reframe. I think that's a really good reframe actually, because it really comes down to, again, balance. So let's look at it from a more of a majority kind of thing, emotionally, sexually, financially, well, all these different components, right? So as long as the majority of those fall into that realm for that masculine being, great. Like that's what it's about at the end of the day, right? Is again the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, I'm in my masculine, and then 20%, as I need, will step into the feminine. Whatever. But the whole wishy-washy thing of like, oh, I've heard this so many times. Oh, I'll just be in my feminine. I'll be in my masculine, and then when I need to be, and then I'll step in my feminine, like as needed, kind of thing. For the opposite, for the person that actually needs to be more in their feminine as opposed to their masculine. I'm in my masculine most of the time, but I'll step into my feminine when I need to be. It doesn't work like that. That's why there's so much dysfunction in relationships and dating and everything across the map. Everyone's running around like a chicken with their head cut off. They have no fucking clue what's going on. And that's a lot of what, again, what we're speaking to is the reality of just that whole situation. I'll just kind of, whatever. I'll just do this when I need to, or, blah, blah, blah. And just kind of fly by the seat of my pants. It's not going to work. You've got to figure out, what feels the best. What is the most, again, this is about thriving, like we're speaking to, right? This is about thriving. This is about being the best version of yourself. And I think that with the stereotypical and societal conditioning factored in, it really creates a lot of conflict for people, And I look back at my life even and see, what and how I've, been kind of sucked into a, way of being or operating in a certain season of my life. And I'm like, well, no wonder it's been like that. Right. So yeah, just that kind of frame is so important. The 80-20 rule, I love it. We've spoken, or 90-10 or whatever. It's just the majority of the time has got to be in that chosen pole for you to thrive and to have balance in a relationship.
Yeah.
I don't think we're like creating some sort of ridiculous notion here, right? Because like this is yeah, it's very deeply ingrained, and so we're kind of just observing the things that are already there, as opposed to like trying to make something up. Because like this, especially this provision aspect, is like, yeah, this is just like the person who's providing more is typically the one in their masculine, and it's just the observation, and so you can reverse engineer it. So if you want to step into more masculine, work towards providing more.
There it is. On a multitude of fronts. I love that.
Yeah, and you have to provide for yourself first. Like, put on your own oxygen mask. If you're not self-led and provisioning for your own life as the masculine being, it's going to be impossible to bring in another being. Like, you're not going to be able to do it. Karen here has really dropped the ultimate question, which, if I had a dime for every time I heard it, and the key word here, I've survived. Just survived. Just not how we want to be, right? For so long without a masculine partner or a masculine being, it's difficult to tone down and surrender, right? So this is it. And yeah, Ruthie is agreeing, and this is the big one. And this is actually how I broke into this work, was solving my own shit of being, in my feminine, being indecisive, attracting masculine partners. And those women were extremely toxic once we got into our dynamic, because then it became a fight between my masculine and her masculine. And then there's all these inversions that happen. So that's why I got into this work. I was also studying Qigong, and I found Tantra and like sexual yoga, basically. And I was like, oh, like sexuality is at the center of this. Let's not ignore that. Sexuality is at the center of this. And something extremely important to realize is that if you are a boss bitch, and I'm speaking a lot to those female entrepreneurs that are just 6-7 figures, like crushing it, and fuck yeah, Let's support that. I want more of that. And a lot of them, because I've worked with a lot of them, they're like, I'm full masculine during the day, and all I want is to be feminine in the bedroom. So they want to be in their feminine when they go to bed with the partner. And what they don't realize is that actually that switch, I mean, you can do it. That switch is tough on you. You know, as Karen's sharing here, the surviving without masculine. So what I'm hearing there, surviving without masculine provision, without the masculine leadership, without the masculine heart and like love and connection, what happens? You have to shield up. You got to armor up. You got to become a hard ass. You know, and if there's emotion there, what are you going to do with it? Because you have to be in your masculine, especially if you have kids, as a single mother. You know, we have an epidemic of single mothers. And this is a big part of why a lot of this is reversed, is because for generations, strong masculine men have been absent or toxic or abusive in many levels. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. And it's very interesting why this is happening. That's a whole nother podcast or live. But the work here, the quote unquote work for the feminine is, you know, and find other women, find your sisters. You need sisterhood, you know. Go and find women who can teach you how to be in your heart and surrender. There are practices, there are methods. You can do it. It's your natural instinct. So actually, you just have to get rid of the bullshit, and the instinct will take over. You don't need to learn this as a female being, as a feminine being.
One note there is maybe the like a tactical tip perhaps is I think one of the wise practices as the feminine in that state is you've talked on this before, but signaling, like signaling availability, signaling desire. It can be like I was just talking to a single mother today actually who was talking about some of her dating experiences, and you know, an interaction between her and a man who was approaching her for her number, and she basically like didn't have, she was like working out, you know, in this whole experience of her own, she pulled out a business card and was like, here you go, you can call me right here. And the guy was like, she told me, she's like, yeah, I just wondered why he never texted me. And you know, I'm like, and they ended up connecting later on down the road, and he was like, I thought you wanted to like sell me something or make me be a client. I had no idea that you were actually interested. And so I was like trying to help her understand, like, you weren't signaling any sort of availability, like, and so that's just kind of one funny but very useful practice, being able to do that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's an example of masculine communication. Here's my business card. No signaling of desire, like, oh, I like the attention, even if it's just for a moment. A great example.
Awesome work. Lois Duncan actually posted a really good one here. I'm in an incredibly beautiful relationship where we are truly equal partners. We are both healed and whole and did our personal healing work. We are partners in business and life. Unity, not polarity. Interesting. I'm curious how that like balance or that dance, you know, works, because ultimately, again, it's not about, you know, this is about the finding that solid ground, finding the balance between two people, right? And one party, right, is going to lead the other majority of the time. So it's not about that you can't go back and forth and have these kind of dynamics and or be in business and all this stuff, but there's got to be a leading force in that case. And so I'd be curious to, what you're saying is, you know, unity, not polarity, how that, you know, applies to your dynamic, because I've never seen it before, realistically, in you know, in the world, and I think that people complain about that more often than not, realistically.
I think there might be a definite, I'm assuming, Lois, I don't know, I'd love for you to share more, because this is very valuable.
100%.
The word polarity, or the word polarized, especially right now in terms of Democrat, Republican, red, blue, you know, there's a lot of that word gets thrown around. And yes, it can mean that, but that's an example of a negative polarity. Not that's bad, but a polarity that's actually destructive. This is creative polarity. So this polarity actually creates life force, opens to love, opens desire, you know, and this is this is just the thing with language, right? Unity, yes. Like when you're in love, and I mean, it sounds like you have an amazing relationship if you're both, you know, you've done a lot of the personal work and you're doing business and life together. And I'm assuming, you know, the emotional sexual layer is awesome as well. That is unity, and that's union. That's right. That's real love between masculine and feminine. That's the goal here. So I think if you have that, you have high polarity. And so that's kind of the mind fuck here. Polarity doesn't mean the opposite of unity. And so that's just a little like nuance. It's a distinction. And I think this is where, you know, we might get into trouble launching something called primal polarity, which I'm fine with actually. The funny thing is it's polarizing in and of itself to teach polarity because it's very nature. And the word has a charge in a lot of the community because they have, again, we said at the beginning of this video, everyone believes they're an expert at this, which is fine. I'm not claiming to be an expert. None of us are experts, just dedicated students. And so that's the beauty of the free group we have. You know, that's the top link in my bio. You can DM any one of us. We have a free group called the Polarity Dojo where we're actually going to be practicing this on Facebook. We also have an 8-week program you can join. It's pinned here. It's also the top link in my bio where you can go deep into this. And this is for singles and couples. This is for men and women. This is for non-binary beings, where we're going to tactically break this down and have accountability support and a full curriculum for 8 weeks. So if that's something you want to strengthen and you're already in a relationship or you're dating and you want to learn the game at a high level, I would highly recommend putting an application because this is the stuff I wish I knew like 9 years ago when I was like just getting devastated and emotionally unavailable, toxic dynamics. And I wish I knew some of this shit.
Isn't it funny too, to add to what you're saying, how language, we were speaking on this earlier, that language can play such a factor in the way that we relate or the way that we communicate or the way we're triggered by certain things, right? And it's just the irony there that again, it's about finding attunement. It's about finding what works, not about like all the crazy woke culture bullshit and this and that, and like all this divisiveness. We're trying to, you know, bring people together, right? Not create further divide. And I think that's the mind fuck of it as well. I think Lois said something here, responded. We made a commitment to ride together. The sexual connection is off the charts. We lead from our strengths and are not in competition with each other. We elevate and amplify each other. Great. That sounds like you're in a really polarized situation, a very healthy one. So that's incredible. And that's exactly what this whole frame is about, what we're speaking to in general, is how can we stay in our perspective poles and support one another and until you start to get a taste of what this is like in relations. And this goes for people that are single and just out there dating, and this goes all the way to relationships and marriage. It applies on the entire spectrum, right? So until you start to really taste what that is like, you have no clue the beauty in that dance.
Yeah, we'll start to kind of wind down here, but there are a few other comments I want to quickly address because they're really, really good. Karen up top said, you know, in the bedroom, I'm all feminine, right? And she was saying she's survived so long without a masculine. I mean, this is the fact of the matter and the real art form. And this is where your own rituals and practices as a woman come in. And again, go to the sisterhood. You have to learn, I would imagine, as a feminine being, to actually be in your feminine throughout the day, not just at night in the bedroom, or not, you know, can you do that? Not to say you're not going to use your masculine too, especially if you're a mom or you have a really high profile job, you're gonna have to use your masculine for sure. And can you be feminine led? This is a game, and you know. Anyway, there's too much to go into there. Amrita Matri has a great one. Men being real men and not catering to women or letting women push them around is definitely sexy. Not toxic or abusive, just safe and strong. Boom. That's a mic drop. There's an amazing meme going around. I don't know. I think Jake Woodward posted it. I don't think he made it. But it's basically like toxic masculinity is spiteful and abusive, right? Strong masculinity is safe and strong. So a lot of people associate And again, the media is pure propaganda. Like if you're still listening to anything coming out of the Wall Street Journal or CNN or, whole nother video, but it's just bad. It's bad. A lot of people see a safe, let's forget safe, a strong, directed man. And it's like, that's toxic, right? Because he's able to say no. And he has a mission. So he's not going to be distracted. He's not going to, if someone's like, you're bad. And he's going to be like, oh, let me like placate and let me people. No, that's real powerful masculine energy. Toxic masculinity, it's not even masculinity. That toxic energy is just spiteful, abusive, unsafe people because they don't feel safe inside themselves. So we have to like reclaim that term. And, again, the front line is language. What else do we got here? Ruthie, nailing it. She's saying it's so worth it to be in your feminine if you really want polarity. It's worth it to surrender. It's such a brain twist because we've been trained to not. So she understands. Huge. 11:11. In my community, there's too much competition between women. This is a whole nother video too. The different flavors of how women compete and how men compete, right? And I'll just quickly cover it. Men compete up in verticals in the hierarchy, right? So it's like, who's the strongest man? He's going to become the chief, right? Who's the smartest man? He's going to become the priest or the wizard, whatever. Who's the most emotionally available man? He might become the mentor or the uncle and be the one more involved in child rearing in the tribe. So men are going to be in these verticals. And the beautiful thing is most men, unless they're spiteful, abusive, and really hurt, they're happy to follow a super strong masculine alpha or masculine leader. Because that's how you actually align and gain power. It's like, oh, mentorship. This guy just kicked my ass in a fight. Now I want to learn from him. That's real masculine energy. Or in business, this guy's crushing it. Let me learn. So it's vertical hierarchies. Women often organize in the horizontal hierarchy. So it's actually who is accruing attention, beauty, mates, who is accruing the feminine values, which still become resources and attention. But the shadow side of that, though, is gossip. It's picking each other apart, tearing each other down, and competing in those horizontal to match with the masculine verticals. I mean, this is what we're going to cover in the program because this is stuff I geek out on, is actually studying tribal circuits. And Zach brought it up earlier, the masculine versus the feminine circuit. Well,
and there's a lot of great questions and things that have been presented tonight. And I would encourage anyone that's been tuning in. We've had people just like the entire time, or almost the entire hour, just engaged, which is amazing. But definitely join the Facebook group, the Polarity Dojo. It's in all of our bios. Link, you can you tune in. All kinds of engagement, community being built. I mean, we're really blazing a trail here for people to come in and have these questions answered, and relay information and just build and create connections with other people that are interested in this space, right? And that's a lot where even outside of the 8-week program, a great place to start. Lots of value, lots of opportunity, again, to connect with people of a similar mindset. So see a lot of familiar faces jumping on here, like I haven't seen for a while. It's great. But yeah, it's what it is.
Any closing thoughts, Zach? There's too much to go into. We'll wind it down.
Yeah, I think what's popping in for me just as a close is that one of the reasons why this works is, the polarity sort of spectrum here, the hierarchy is like the woman surrenders to the man, but the reason this works is because the man surrenders to God, surrenders to purpose, surrenders to aligned spirit, and like where women check and test men and their integrity, their masculine energy, God checks us to make sure that we're aligned. So when we're leading and guiding and aiming at things, collaborating, moving towards higher power, higher purpose, higher visions, you'll be kind of stricken down as a man if you're doing all of this out of integrity. And so, a man with a spiritual connection who, is practiced there and in prayer and in meditation and really truly tries to source his energy from the abundance and not from those, around him, from the infinite source, that's where our check comes in. And so we don't just get all of this sort of like leadership responsibility and power without our own checks and balances that comes from, the universe squashing us if we're not in integrity. So.
Well said. And, the feminine is also a direct uplink to God and spirit also. Mm-hmm. This is why the feminine is literally the portal of life. Like new mm-hmm. life, new spirit comes into earth through the feminine, through the female body. And the relationship is different though, as you just beautifully said, Zach. If the man has a mission and purpose at the highest level and direction, and he's surrendered up to something greater than him, he's going to get checked in that way. For the feminine, it's all about living that in the moment and actually being connected through her womb and her heart to that energy. Because that's why she just always is changing. And if she's clear and she's not holding back, it's just life force. It's just Shakti. And that's why being around a really feminine woman, nobody can look away. Of course, all the men are like, oh my God, they're attracted. But also all the women, even animals and children, they just want to be around her because she's pure energy. Yep. She's pure energy. And that's what we need on the planet right now. Yes. We need men that are in full fucking aligned power, leading, and we need women to be safe in their feminine, radiating energy. In one generation, we could turn this ship around with all the bullshit going on planet Earth right now, if we had that. And that's why someone mentioned at the very beginning, people are like, why would someone want to make men feminine and women masculine? It's like, well, because you don't want to change the status quo then, and you don't have the energy to do it. There is a war. Like let's not parse words. There is a war on masculinity and femininity. You don't need to turn very far to find it. Just turn on your evening news on your mainstream channels. So before this becomes a political rally, let's close this out. I'm on a heater right now, loving and just grateful for you gentlemen, for everyone joining, and just getting to do this work and getting to share in such a beautiful way a pathway to love. That's the ultimate download here. So if you resonated with this, send us a direct message. If you just want to have a conversation and ask anything, something you didn't get answered, you want to learn more, the links in our bios, you have all our profiles here. I'm also going to repost this, so this will be saved. And yeah, applications are open for Primal Polarity. It's my website /primalpolarity, kevinorris.com. And yeah, we're really excited to take people through this accelerator to create the best relationship that you've ever had or strengthen the one you have right now. So thank y'all. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. See you soon.
Much love.